Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll just give a couple of moments so everybody connect. We're also live on Facebook, so you can also watch us there. All right. Let's see who is joining us. If you want, you can let us know in the chat below from where you're connecting. It's always great to see how many different countries gather in our master classes. We are based in Madrid, in Spain. Roman is in Canary Islands. So hello from Canada. Okay, great. And Montreal. That's great. Perfect. Okay. Hi, Alexander. Okay, so I suggest that we slowly start. And in the meantime, I'm sure that somebody else will join us too. So hello, everybody again. My name is Eva, and in the name of SGO, I would just like to welcome you to our first live Mistika VR Q&A session. Many thanks for joining us today. So let me first introduce the team. Say hi to our Mistika product managers, Roman Dudek and Adrián González, who will be answering your questions today. And from our SGO marketing department today with me, also my colleague, Alba Manzanas. So hello, guys. How are you doing? Good, really great. Glad to be here again. Perfect. Everything ready for the session? Sure. Roman? Sure. Okay, perfect. So as you guys might know, you were able to send us your questions in advance. So our plan for today is to first cover the ones that were sent to us in advance. And in the meantime, you can go placing your questions in the Q&A panel you can find in the lower tab of Zoom screen, or you can also put your questions in the comments on Facebook. You can also upvote the questions. So the more votes the question has, the bigger priority it will get when we start answering them. The same goes for Facebook with the likes. So I think that sounds fair. And just before we kick off the session, I would recommend you to setting your Zoom window to full screen or your video on Facebook. So you'll see better some tips that Adrián will give in Mistika. Okay, so let's move now to the fun part. So the first question that we got was related with the latest 10.3 release of Mistika VR. And apart from the Obsidian Pro support, PTGUI 12 is one of the highlights of this new version. So Roman, could you please explain us what kind of benefits that actually brings to the users?
Well, the main improvement is multiple lens groups are supported now. So especially you need it for mixed rigs where more than one type of lens is used in the same rig. Like, for example, a fisheye pointing to the sky plus rectilinear lenses pointing to horizon. So this is basically useful for experimental rigs or for creation of virtual backgrounds where not every part of the image is the same of importance. Plus, there have been some bugs which made it hard to actually use with some rigs. So especially useful for very large rigs for virtual backgrounds.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so the second one is the always popular Stereo 3D. Do you have any specific tips or strategies for stitching stereo 360 video with static and moving objects in the near foreground? I think, Adrián, this one is for you. Yeah, basically, the general rule when you make the stereo 3D of the shot, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see a little bit of what we're doing here. I have here an Insta360 shot, and it's already stitched, and I can control the stereo. In fact, I've made some adjustments so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to put in black and white anaglyph. And one of the golden rules when you're making a stereo is basically trying to convert the background. You need a reference to convert the image in there in the stereo. And the background is always a good reference because you never know exactly the distance of the background to the camera. So because I don't know, for example, distance of
this building here to the camera itself, I can just try to converge all those lenses. So for example, if I enable here the overlays modes, I can just with the shift trying to move the left and right eye until I try to converge those cameras, as you can see in the background. The idea of doing that is because in that way I can just take like to have my reference for the depth of the whole shot. So I can just do that adjustment between pair of cameras. And once I've done it, I've done this kind of adjustment, I can just disable, for example, the overlays again and just control the jaw balance to control the overall depth of your shot without affecting that adjustment that you did before. That's for the general stereo 3D, especially when you're using or shooting like landscapes or shots where you don't have many objects close to the camera. When you have objects close to the camera, now that can be problematic, especially if you break the minimum distance to the lenses, and especially with those cameras with a big interocular distance between the different lenses. So for that scenarios, there are two ways to do it, trying to find like some kind of sweet spot between the background and the object that is closer to the camera. Another way to do it is using the tools in Mistika Boutique, because Mistika Boutique has an option that is not available here in Mistika VR that allows you basically to compress some of the depth areas of your image in a way that you can try to avoid or remove that kind of sense of big distance between left and right eye. But that's something specific of Mistika Boutique thanks to the stereo 3D functionality. Another option, as always, is trying to make a compositing. You can always make when there is no option of fixing that using stereo 3D tools, another option is try to make a compositing in a way that you basically try to converge a little bit more in the objects that are closer to the camera, and you make another stitch for the background, and then you compose both in any compositor. Mistika Boutique again is a really good option for that because it allows you to control the stereo of background and foreground at the same time. But that's probably the most complex scenario. In general, again, trying to convert the background. Then if the object is closer to the camera, trying to find some kind of sweet spot. And if that's not an option, using Mistika Boutique to compress the depth signal, or as the last resort, make the compositing between foreground and background.
Perfect. So we just got additional question from Charlie in the chat saying, what determines the jaw balance of a stereo shot?
Okay, so let me check the chat for 1 second as well. The jaw balance of a stereo shot. Basically, the jaw balance is more like an artistic decision. It's not really like a technical one. You always need to keep the depth of your shots in some kind of rational values, and that's really obvious. I mean, if you see it right with your eyes, is in the good range. So basically, there is no a good or bad jaw balance value as long as the depth is consistent and the shot looks fine. So in that way, I normally when I use the jaw balance, I always try to find the depth feeling that I want, but it's not like there is one specific good value. In general, I always try to move everything to the positive parallax because that makes more sense in the VR scenario. The positive parallax is basically that you're creating the depth to I don't know how to explain it. But it's like in the inside of the screen. So basically like far from you, not making the objects closer to you. So yeah, I always try to move everything to the positive parallax, and I use the jaw balance for that.
Okay,
Can
perfect.
I contribute to this point?
Sure.
Yaw balance, in theory, convergence should be at infinity for headsets. But as Adri says, this is not very strict. Depth perception is relative. So yaw balance can be virtually almost anything you can choose. But you should try to aim for infinity, which can be tricky if you are shooting in a small room. In very small place, there you cannot see any infinity in view, so sometimes you need to guess it. And how to guess it? So yaw balance should be that way, so there is 6 centimeters between your views. So you can kind of focus on the furthest things away you can see in your scene and try to make its parallax to be the 6 centimeter, whatever is it in pixels. And if you get it wrong, it's very subtle, but we found an interesting phenomena that if you set your balance on something too near, then persons which are near to the camera will look fat. Somehow fat, their heads will look
That's
too
not good.
round. But you cannot put your finger on that why exactly, but let's say heads looks like melons instead of as they should. You cannot tell it immediately what's the wrong with the scene, but you will see that when you set your balance to invisible infinity, then suddenly everybody very near the camera looks thinner and looks the right way, actually. So it's not very obvious, but it can happen. So you should care about it even if there is nothing near in the scene.
Perfect. So I see, Adrian, that you already pulled up the Titan shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Alexander asked about stitching Titan.
I took some Titan, well, one shot, some of the lenses here. I'm using the metadata from Titan. And it's as Roman said, basically here the convergence is down in the infinity. So, well, I don't have to do many things in this shot, to be honest. I'm just using the internal metadata, and from here I can just control the yaw balance of my shot. And again, here I will use probably the feeling on my eyes. I mean, if I need to move things forward, or if I need to the things far from me, I will use the yaw balance for that. So for example, if I want to put the convergence in here, I can just control, sorry, the other way around, to control this value there. But again, oops, now it's calculating all the clicks.
But the point, if you do this would be interesting. If you do this, then the forward tire will look somewhat wider.
Exactly.
When you see it in 3D. You will not see this phenomenon in 2D, but once you try to see it in 3D in a headset, then everything which is near will look wider. But 3D will still look right. It means like this tire will be nearer than anything else. Horizon will look just fine. But then you will find this subtle effect of near things getting fatter.
Yeah, but again, it depends of, as Roman said, about the shot itself. I mean, if in this case I don't have many things near to the camera, so probably have more flexibility there. If I have more objects or persons or character, whatever, near to the camera, probably need to control that in a more subtle way. In any way, I will always keep that rule of trying to keep the infinity, the convergence at the infinity, because it always looks fine normally.
Okay, great. So let's move to another one. It's also related to stereo 3D. So when stitching a stereoscopic 360 sequence with actors who have crossed the stitch lines, I'm having problems with distortion of objects immediately behind them. I'm using stereo edge points, but they seem less effective close to the stitch. Are there other settings that would help solve this problem?
Maybe Roman, maybe that part can help compressing the areas that are closer to the area that with the depth controls of Mistika Boutique. I mean, normally the stitch lines always create problems, and at this point, I mean, when an object crosses a stitch line, you will get many times you can get distortions, and those distortions will be visible as well in a stereo 3D. Trying to converge a little bit more those areas may help to make those distortions less visible for the viewer. But probably we need to check specifically that shot or the camera and the interocular distance between the lenses, because I'm not quite sure if there is like a golden rule there. Maybe, I mean, depending of how close is the object, you need to use one technique or another one.
Just edge points are the best bet, but there are no silver bullets. There are no solutions for all, especially if the person which is near is moving and crossing lines. Then your best bet is try to use edge points and then somehow animate those edge points into existence, animating their radius, animating them in and out of existence, and try to hand over to yet another edge point in different zone. which if somebody is running around the camera would get quite laborious. So it's not very good solution. So whenever possible, try to avoid this situation already when shooting, because as minimum it will create a lot of work in post.
Okay, so we have some new questions in the Q&A that are related to stereo 3D. Let's see those. So the first one is, Roy said that after he did the stitch, the only left with convergence and maybe a bit of warping. So in terms of disparity control, when can I know that I did the most in Mistika? And if I want, I can now, from now on, do the rest: disparity, jaw, pitch, roll, in compositing, editing app. In other words, how do I know if I did it, you know, all the way in Mistika?
How do we know we did everything possible in Mistika?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very relative.
Is there a question to, I mean, the answer to it?
Yes, there is a lot of factors to play, which are like optical flow is kind of temperamental. So sometimes tweaking its parameters improves the thing, sometimes actually worsen. So it's not clear. You can play with optical flow parameters, with a range parameter, with softness, and eventually it can get better, but you need just to get an eye for guessing if it is all you can get. Again, not a single solution. By general rule, optical flow works best when it has little to do. So try to use the shift balance to get things as near as possible in with optical flow off, maybe, and then try to switch on the optical flow. So it needs to move the things the least. But no, there is no single rule.
Okay, so he says in the chat that the question wasn't clear. What he meant is that if he can change disparity in compositing apps, or does he need to go? Does he needs to do everything in Mistika?
Well,
Adri, yes.
I mean, depending on the app, you will be able to control it in some of them. And I can say that with plenty of confidence. There is no other software out there with the stereo 3D functionality that you have in Mistika, period. So you can control it, of course, because there are some other softwares with stereo 3D toolsets, but it's not quite the same. So yes and no. I mean, I guess if you need the finest tuning, I guess you will need Mistika for that. But again, if there is a stereo 3D toolset in another software, you will be able to do it.
Well, that's a nice comment from Kobe in the Q&A panel. He says that of course there is another software, it's Mistika Boutique. So you know. Okay, sticking with the stereo before we move onto the next topic. Another question from Roy is that, is no stereo view in any way working on stereo footage, or should he ignore it and use only left, right, and anaglyph?
In my experience, most of the job is done using left, right, and anaglyph for one specific reason. If the stereo 3D is not nice and you work many times viewing bad stereo, you will get a headache. And that's not something that we can ignore, because at the end, you normally will spend quite a lot of time viewing your shots and making the tuning and the adjustments. So my recommendation is always try to fix the most of the aspects using left and right, and then the anaglyph. And then once you have a result that is looking fine in the anaglyph, then try the stereo more than just start with the stereo, because it can be a little bit problematic when you spend many times with it with that mode enabled.
Yes, anaglyph is a great diagnostic tool. You can spot a lot of issues of stereoscopy in anaglyph, and you can also, of course, watch it with those nice anaglyph glasses. You should always have ones, even if they are not high-tech, but they always work in any kind of display, so they are very useful tool. But actually, anaglyph is the most useful as diagnostics tools.
Yeah.
Where you can see if you get disparity, if your alignment is in place. Could you switch to anaglyph, Adri?
Yes, sure. There you go.
Yes, and you can hunt for vertical misalignments, for
Yeah.
example. Whatever disparity we see, disparity means when there are colors. And this scene is pretty well aligned, but could you show the previous scene?
Yeah.
Where on the monument in the middle, there is some vertical misalignment, which should be done something about, possibly just calibrate this again, this camera. So here we can see the stereo will be quite poor in the middle where the monument is. And we can see it on first sight. Basically everything in Infinity should be black and white. That's the goal. Yeah, as diagnostic tool. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so moving on from stereo, now I think we'll answer one of the most asked questions in history of Mistika VR. So how about support to stream to the glasses, Roman?
Yes, so we are working on it and expect some news really soon. So
that's a very diplomatic answer, but yeah, I know.
Yes. So definitely it should be soon. Yes.
Okay, great. So we have some questions. I think two of them that came about the rendering from Mistika. So Rowie asked, what master format do you recommend on rendering from Mistika? He says that files are very big, but are they necessary? Image sequences from Mistika are super slow, so best practices, please.
About formats, it will depend of the input format as well, because let's say that, for example, in the VR world, this is pretty weird, but let's say that, for example, you are working with a raw rig of red cameras or something like that. Depending of your delivery, if it's your final delivery, you won't render to a format like EXR normally. But if you want some kind of format where you have all the information without compressing or without losing any kind of detail, EXR or TPX or TIFF can be a really good option. For general delivery, for masterings, I always recommend ProRes. First, because it works really fast with Mistika, and second, because we have plenty of codecs, so you have many levels of ProRes if you only want a proxy for editing, or if you want to have your master in 444. So basically, you have plenty of options there. I will use ProRes as my master, and then for if I need to upload to whatever platform online, I will use H.264 or H.265. So again, it depends a little bit about the camera, because most of the cameras in the VR world, most of the commercial cameras in the VR world doesn't have enough color depth to consider, for example, formats like EXR, like a reasonable format, because yes, you are going to keep all that information, but you don't have enough information to keep. So you can use a faster and more compressed format like ProRes. But if you are using rig cameras of cameras of raw like Red, Arri, Sony, Blackmagic, whatever, it's probably worth it to use this kind of format like EXR, TIFF, or DPX.
Yes, regarding the H.264 and 265, try to use the bitrate. It works much more stable. Sorry, the QP. The QP mode, the quality parameter mode, works much more stable than bitrate. The bitrate sometimes is pulsing. It's just we are using NVIDIA board and it doesn't seem to be that regular. So if it is for uploading to YouTube, let's say, always use the QP quality factor, the constant quality, not the constant bitrate.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we move a little bit to 180 now? Because I think this is also a very trending topic. So Adrián, could you please show us like just a short example of VR 180 workflow in Mistika VR, please?
All right, so I have, well, first, 180 can be generated in two ways. It can be like a strict 180 in a way that you don't need to stitch anything, because you basically have an image and you cover the 180 with the lens that you're using for that image. Or you can extract that information with that 180 information from a 360 shot. So in this case, I have a pure 180 shot. I'm going to load the preset for this camera, which is the Sugar, and it's this one if I'm correct. Yes, there we go. So now basically I don't need to stitch anything, and I won't suffer that kind of problem from the stitching, but I need to adjust the stereo 3D as well. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do first is to select in here the one view mode, and I'm going to center the lens in there with a circle, first step. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the second one there. And once I have it, I'm going to bake this in the output camera. All right, so now I'm going to start working with the stereo 3D. So I'm going to go to the black and white anaglyph, and with basically with the horizontal, I can just try to convert at some point. This is like a diagnostics tool as well. What I need is just to convert to some point. So for example, let's see that I want to convert to here to the middle. Let's see if I can just do it more precise. There we go. More maybe. Okay, so now I can enable this tool in here, which is basically the align mode for, and it's really nice for these shots. I can just take this shot, take the right eye, and just drag until I can adjust and converge both things. And now I have to do the same thing with the sides. So I can just go to here with the horizontal again, try to converge the sides. Let me go more slower. Here, there we go, something like that. And again, just try to convert them. And same thing here. So let's try to convert in the other side. And just in case, come back to the middle. Just in case, because this can be misaligned a little bit my previous work. So in that way, I can just like align a little bit. I'm working in all this scenario over the right eye. So I'm basically using the left eye as a reference and just adjusting the right eye in a way that now if I switch between one and the other, now we get a really nice stereo between two shots. I can go more in detail, and I can just go as well up and down just to see to match as well those areas. But in that way, I can like moving the shot across. I am using one point as a reference to get a nice stereo between both shots. And once I finish, I just disable the horizontal, so I can just disable it there and just come back with a previous depth scenario. So this is how I will normally work with the stereo 3D using VR 180, which is probably, at least from the geometry point of view, this should be the most problematic aspects, because you don't have a stitch or any of the normal problems that you find in a 360 shot.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adrián. So the next one is also related with VR 180 that we got. So the question is, can you walk us through selecting the correct lenses in a multicam camera like the Insta360 Pro 2 for VR 180 if the operator was pointing the camera in the wrong direction? Or does Mistika automatically figure out which way is forward and select the correct lenses? Roman, I think this one is for you.
Sorry, repeat, which one was it? Select it.
So it was basically the one about the VR 180 and selecting the cameras in Insta360 Pro 2.
Yes.
What's,
Sorry.
you know.
Yes, I see. Let's see, VR 180. So we have we can opt in basically two ways. One is using just two cameras coaxial pointing the same way, which will provide us nice stereo in the middle of the view, where the cameras are basically side by side, but it will provide very poor stereo when we turn sideways, where the two cameras are basically one behind the other. So just don't expect stereo ever or 90 degrees from where you are watching, because the cameras are not side by side, seeing them from the side. They are one behind the other. So if you switch between eyes, you are getting kind of traveling instead of left-right disparity. So stereo, using only 2 cameras is nice because there is no stitching involved and post-production is easy, very quick. And anyway, normally we are putting whatever is important in the middle. So here it is even more important that whatever action is happening there, which will draw attention of the viewer, should be in the middle of the view, means in front of observer. Then, if we really need stereoscopy across whole 180 degrees degrees of view, then there is a second way, which is using a 360 camera. Should we 360 camera do the complete stitch as if we were doing 360, and then just cut out the front half? How? So basically we stitch, Adri, could you switch to a 360 view? No, sorry, to a 360
that
project.
360 shot.
Yes, the
Yeah.
track, the last one.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So this is a 360 scene. Now it's with 3D where we can see the track, it is in front. And now just switch view to side by side 180. Now we did it into the stereo in the viewer, but as well we could render it. Could you just open the render window?
Sorry, there we go.
And choose in the
Here,
stereo mode
left,
right VR 180. This will take the 360 scene and render left one VR 180. Now, the 360 cameras do not have the front direction, or they have by convention. Normally, there is the camera 1 which is pointing in front, but we can place camera virtually in any direction. So if we want to actually reorient, and we are not happy about the track that we want it in that center, close the render window, please. We see the track is a bit to the right. So just use the yaw of the output camera and recenter the view where you wish to have it. This is just basically panning around, changing the yaw, or just center it on the old car on the floor on the right. Just go faster.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in 30, something like that.
Yes.
See what happened. No,
30. Now 170.
Nope.
Fine. So
okay.
now we are centering on the red track, the red old track. This is the second way how to do it. Maybe back, could you show the first VR 180 shot? Yes, so this is 360. Yes, in this way. Now, in this view, could you switch on the blue overlay, the first one? Just to some comments, the switch to black
and white anaglyph.
Anaglyph, yes. So basically, the scene is calibrated the best possible we can do when you get no vertical parallax along the central blue line, or switch on the grid maybe even, and zoom in. So vertical parallax is always bad. Vertical parallax is what makes you dizzy when watching this for extended time. This time we are doing very well. So Adri already calibrated this scene and it wasn't especially problematic, but we can see, move to the right and zoom in. There should be no vertical parallax along the central line. Go below, yes, where the where the letter is. But now let's go to some corner. Let's go to the Yeah,
Maybe
you see here we have quite large vertical parallax. This is not because the scene isn't aligned. It is. It is aligned the best possible as far as VR 180 can be aligned. But here the issue is that this line, it is almost to our right. It's like 80 degrees to our right. And just it is nearer to one eye than the other. It is the issue of traveling, let's say. And now we have a nice trick in Mistika with the coaxial distance parameter. And increase it. And now you see we are fixing the vertical parallax in the corner at certain distance. How? What does this mean? That here, as we have kind of traveling effect, so things which are near are getting vertical parallax because they are kind of vertically growing. If you get something to nearer, if we get nearer to some object, it will kind of zoom in, which means it will grow in every direction, especially in vertical direction, and produce vertical parallax, which will make us dizzy when watched. So we can fix this in Mistika for certain distance, but this works very much like focus pooling. We go further down, Adri, here, and we see that on her feet, maybe I'll go even further down.
No, not so much.
Yes.
So
here, go down, yes, the spot, this clear spot, and try to use coaxial distance to calibrate on that clear spot. Yeah. So now with value of 5, it will be fixed, but go up again, and we will see that we already overdid on this line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of like, works kind of like focus pooling, that we cannot get all the distances right in the same time. So this is a compromise. So we basically set it to some compromise value or set it to fix objects which the watcher is likely to look at. So this will be probably the feet of the girl on the right.
Yeah, here.
So nobody is going to watch nearer than feet of that girl, likely. So if there were a person in middle spreading hands, then probably what everybody would watch at is the spread hands. Then we would have to calibrate at the spread hands of the person. But again, this is a creative decision. We have to guess what is actually the sweet spot. What is the spot which will be the most watched, and use it as the sweet spot distance, this coaxial distance. If we overdo, then distance things will get vertically disaligned, and they will be difficult to watch in 3D. This is inherent issue of VR 180 rigs, where eyes are placed side by side, which means that when watched at 90 degrees, eyes are kind of one behind the other. And we can do nothing about it. The only solution would be use a 360 rig with all the troubles which comes with that, and then cut out 180.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the detailed answer, Roman. Okay, so I guess next one is for you, Adri. So is it possible to add a new audio in Mistika VR, like narration, and sync it to the video?
Not in Mistika VR, definitely. You need to go to Mistika Boutique because VR is designed for stitching, not for producing with audio and editing and this kind of stuff. If you need to create that kind of project, you need to go to Mistika Boutique, in where you will find all the options and tools to make that kind of adjustment.
Okay, perfect. So the next one is also for you. What are the absolute minimum requirements for storage and hardware to have real-time playback of 8K footage with grades and compositing applied? I think this is more for Mistika Boutique than for VR.
Yeah, it is with grades and compositing, absolutely. Well, it depends on the format that you are using first, and of course the complexity of your your timeline. In general, 8K production needs an storage that is capable to read at 5 GB per second minimum, and is very minimum. So I will say like 6 just to be sure. And regarding the hardware, I always say Mystica always work using GPU. So the faster the GPU, the better. And because you are using 8K footage, and that means like big textures and big files, using quite a lot of RAM, like more than 64 gigabytes and probably closer to 180, 128. But again, for the storage, minimum 5 gigabytes per second. And keep in mind that you will be able to have real-time playback until certain point, because if you're making a complex compositing or something like that, you won't be able to have it. With grades is less problematic, because grades normally overload the system much less than a real compositing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So is there a way to flag certain shots to render and others to ignore? Adri?
In Mistika VR, not at this moment. In Mistika Boutique, you have more options as well in this department, so you can select the shot that you want to render and just render those. There is another option with Mistika VR, which is using the render queue option, which is in here. To render queue, which can be connected, for example, with Mistika workflows, and just send there only the shots that you want, but you have to go one by one. But you don't need to wait until the render finish. You just send like the metadata to Mistika workflows, and you render the shots that you want. But the faster way is obviously Mistika Boutique at this moment.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So now I'd just like to mention that one of our users brought to our attention today that we had an outdated version of Mistika VR manual published on our website. We have already took care of that. So many thanks again for bringing this up. The next one, I think it's also for me. So it's actually a feedback saying that it would be great if we used Apple's Gatekeeper, so our future builds were signed as an official development. We are working with Apple on various things, and that one is definitely one of them. Okay, so I see that we have a lot of questions in the chat and in the Q&A panel. Alba, which one should we do first, the Q&A panel or the chat?
I think we can go with the chat first.
Okay, so Charlie is asking what is the best way of codecs in codecs to render your stitched footage from Mistika VR and retail a high resolution file after editing?
Again, I think the best format there is ProRes. Using ProRes, maybe let me open here 444 or HQ. Don't go below than that, because you will lose a lot of functionality. So using one of those, XQ only if you want to keep as much detail as possible, but both options could be fine depending of your rig.
Okay, perfect. The next one is from Rowie saying, can you please explain what is the difference between offset X and jaw?
Well, go ahead, Roman. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Jaw is where the camera is actually pointing. And offset X, could you show the crop circle?
You mean in a 360 shot you prefer?
Yes, either.
Okay.
Any. Just show one input only. And show the crop circle, show the overlay, the switch on the overlay. Yes. So basically with fisheye lenses, you can see this crop circle, but this crop circle is never exactly centered in the center of the sensor. It depends, it's how mechanically precise is the positioning on the lens in front of the sensor. And if you move offset X, it kind of result looks kind of as changing yaw, but it is not exactly the same. It will behave in a weird way, as if camera wasn't only changing direction, but it was also zooming in one side and zooming out in other. Maybe if you switch everything off, but show it on VR 180. It could
Right.
be more visible what's happening. Switch off, show only one eye, and now move yaw radically. No, sorry, show the result actually. Show result. So now change a lot the yaw of the camera. Basically, this is like pointing camera somewhere else. In VR 180, the image just moving sideways. Now try to move the offset X. Sorry, this is flipped, so it would be offset Y in this case. Put it in the center. Yes.
Well, let me put it in the
Put
center.
it at 0.
1 second. There you go.
Reset, and you see the effect is not the same. One is just pointing camera somewhere else. The other will distort what you are seeing. If you had a square in the middle of the view, it will stop being square. Try to the rectilinear view, switch on the glasses, the viewing glasses.
With
yes.
the
and show the middle. So now if you move yaw, set this to 0. Yes, to 0. So first we show what's happening. Just change yaw of the camera. This work just like legitimate moving around. Yes. And now let yaw in middle and move the offset Y. You see that actually squares are distorting, columns are distorting. So basically, we need to get the offset Y correctly, if possible, centering the crop circle. The best way is that if you can see it, just make the crop circle sit around the fisheye lens view. Switch on to one input view, Adri.
Sorry.
Show the one input. Switch off the glasses. Yes, and just center it best you can.
Yeah,
correct.
something like that. Yeah.
Be careful with halos that sometimes is, for example, here sky. Could you zoom on the right? That sometimes you see more of the image, but it's actually not true because it's only reflections inside the lens. So best it is look to where the detail extinguishes. Meanwhile, on the other extreme, that it could look like if image is tilted to one way, even if it is not.
Okay.
In front, yes, that is. So offset X and Y is actually centering of the crop circle before mapping of the view, and there should be only one possible correct value. Meanwhile, yaw pitch roll is where you are pointing the camera to. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Roman. Okay, so the next one is also from Charlie. So he asked if you can see your stitch on head-mounted display in Mistika Boutique while stitching.
Not yet, again, but we are working on it soon. Now, please, Mistika VR is not a streaming application, and we actually normally don't do real-time playback, so we expect something like a slideshow. A quick slideshow of what you are doing in the headset.
Roman, this one was actually for Boutique. So
Boutique, it will be the same.
Okay.
We will put the same connection technology on headsets for both Boutique and Mistika VR.
Perfect.
So just please don't expect to see the playback with audio included. You will have to render for that as just now.
Okay.
You will see interactively the same thing you see in your GUI in the headset too.
Roman, don't reveal too much secrets. I mean,
yes.
it's not the time yet.
So don't put the expectation too high.
Exactly.
We are not doing the streaming.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So the next one goes from Fabian. Is there a plan to have the possibility to record directly out of the camera in either using SDI 12G interface or the new HDMI 2.1, I think, and also to review on a proper monitor?
Yeah, is not in the development plans at this moment because Mistika VR and boutique at the same time in this aspect works as post-production tools, not for recording directly from the camera. So that part is not right now a priority.
Okay, perfect. The next one is from Roy. Would you recommend transcoding the camera files before entering Mistika?
In many situations, yes, probably yes, because many times cameras use a very compressed formats or MP4 really compressed, and it's slower working with those kind of files that probably render them to ProRes or something like that Mistika manages much faster. So yeah, in my experience, I have done plenty of times render before working in with the stitching, because I can go faster than.
Okay, perfect. Next one goes from Ia. Why the Insta360 Stitcher is often much better with a closer objects than Mistika VR? Do we have the answer to this one?
I don't know. I don't know.
Not really, right? We'll need to try and see, I think, to be able to answer this in a proper way.
Yeah, I don't know if it's optical flow in general or whatever. They use it for the cameras. I guess they have some information that we are not using our stitch because the stitch is specifically for their cameras, but we have to check that. Yeah.
Let's see, the VR Mistika, the optical flow, probably all stitchers are using some kind of optical flow technology, and optical flow is never perfect. So maybe they are using different kind of optical flow, but the main difference between Mistika and one push button stitchers is that if Mistika doesn't stitch well, you have options to do something about it. So when the one imperfect board, you would just push one button and get your perfect stitch.
Yeah.
And camera providers, stitchers which come with cameras are aiming for that solution. Mistika aims for tweaking the shot where you really do care that if you get an issue. So we provide plenty of tools to try to fix it. And in most cases, actually, you can fix them. Not always, some cases are simply hopeless, but you have plenty of things to try before discarding a shot, instead of having it discarded as a first thing.
Yeah, I think a very important point here is that if you don't get the results that you are looking for when stitching in Mistika VR, you can of course reach out to our support team and just open a ticket and they'll have a look at it and see if there's anything, you know, any additional settings that you could tweak to get a better result. Okay, so the next question, I think it was related with the VR 180 shot that Adrián was working on. So the footage you provide has a lot of details, but how about practices from your experiences with VR 180 or 360 stereo when doing green screen work? Do you recommend placing physical references so when fixing the parallax, you would have more things to adjust to?
For the first question, the green screen, the better the camera, the better result that you get as well. Basically, with green screen, you need quite a lot of information to get a proper chroma. And normally, for example, there, even compressed files like ProRes is not enough. I prefer to work much better with EXR and compressed files for green screens, and then integrate that into the foreground. And then with that, I can just make my compressed file. But keep in mind that probably there is no commercial VR rig at this moment. Maybe I'm wrong, but probably there is no a commercial VR rig that is capable of doing a really nice green screen to get a really nice chroma. So you will need to use shapes and adjust with different tools to get a really good result. Maybe the last one from some brands that support 10 bits color depth will be enough. But even though you need a really nice footage to get a proper green screen. And for the second question, which I think it was, so placing physical objects. For stereo, always help like vertical and horizontal lines. So if you have those kind of objects in your image, because you have natural vertical or horizontal lines, that's fine. If you can place some of them that cannot interfere with the image itself, they can be really helpful. Normally, the most problematic shots for stereo 3D are those that doesn't have this kind of geometric references, because you don't have some kind of clear reference in your image.
Perfect. So the next one is coming from Martin. He's asking, will Mistika VR ever include support for noise reduction software such as Neat Video?
No, not really. For one, I mean, Mistika technology supports OFX, but the problem is we want to make Mistika VR focused on the stitching. If you want to make more post-production processing, like color grading, denoising, sharpening, whatever, you just need to jump to Mistika Boutique. In Mistika Boutique, you have all those options. But Mistika VR is focused on the stitching part. That's the reason why we don't support the not only the possibility of including denoises, but any kind of extra effects more than the stitching part.
Okay, great. So it seems that Jason wants to know a little bit more about the headset support. So he's asking whether it will include Quest on a Mac. Roman, I think we can give like a general answer.
Yes, basically the way we are implementing it should work for any recent platform.
Perfect. That was
yes.
As diplomatic as I was hoping to.
Yes,
so.
yes. It's not one of brand specific support. It should work even for Sony PlayStation or any device you can think of, which is still supported. Oculus Go, for example, is discontinued, so it supports, so it will probably not anymore work for Oculus Go, but for anything more modern than that, it should.
Perfect. Okay, so I think a very interesting topic that we could cover just before we end this very interesting Q&A session is color space support. Adrian, any plans on that?
Okay, I can show you, in fact, a little bit of that here, because I'm using that version. I'm using a beta version here. We are developing that part. It's still in development, so so it's not something that we are going to release right now. But right now, as you can see, we have here, well, I'm going to jump. Let me open any other shot. So I'm going to put in here, 1 second, and I will load something. Okay, I'm going to load again, well, the Titan, just in case, to have another shot. There you go, a clean shot. All right, so right now, as you can see in the camera defaults, we have an input gamma and an input gamut that we have included to select the input color space of your footage. And in the output camera, we have an output gamma and output gamut to select the output color space. So it's basically a color space transform embedded here in Mistika VR. You select your input and your output for every shot, and you will have that kind of color transformation covered there. It supports raw color spaces. Well, it supports all the color spaces and all the color science from Mistika Boutique, which is Mistika Boutique is a color grading software, well, a finishing software. So you can expect in here even aces and all the curves that you can imagine from professional cameras.
Perfect. Well, that sounds very promising, I think. Okay, so I think we got some comments from Raphael about the head-mounted display. We know that it's been a promise for a while, but as you can see, Roman has too many details to reveal at this stage. So we're really optimistic that this feature will be coming very soon. So just bear with us a little bit more, and we'll have some news coming very soon. Okay, so I think we covered all the questions. Alba, am I right, or did I miss anything?
You are right. Yeah, we covered all the questions.
Perfect. And it's been 1 hour sharp, guys. This is awesome. It looks like it was almost planned. So, perfect. If you have any additional questions, of course, you can always reach out to us via support, or you can send us an email to marketing@sgo.s, or you can also write us through social media, whatever you feel more comfortable with, and we'll be more than happy to answer you any doubts that you might have or help you with anything. So just feel free to reach out. Also, just a friendly reminder before we end this very special session. I can see that Alba already pasted in the chat. So today is the last day to participate in our very epic Mistika VR anniversary giveaway, where you can win some really awesome prizes. So you can win Mistika VR, Mistika Boutique, and Mistika Workflows licenses. And we have also a ton of some very cool partner prizes coming from Insta360, Kandao, Teke, Boris FX, and IVRPA. So make sure to have a look at it. You can find it on our Instagram and on our Facebook. So it's really, really easy to participate. You just have to like the post, comment, and optionally share it on Facebook or in your Instagram story just to enter the raffle. So today is the last day. Tomorrow, Alba and myself will be choosing the winners. So just make sure to participate. Also, if you haven't tried Mistika VR or Boutique yet, make sure to download the free trial from our website and give it a go. And I guess this is it for today. So many thanks everyone for joining us. This was a very special session, and hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Take care.
Guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
so much.